All right, good afternoon, and welcome to another great Lunch and Learn. Today, we're truly excited to have our surplus team here today. You see them here on the screen, Debbie Storme and Joe Lisa. If you guys can go ahead and wave to our audience. And so today we will be talking about the surplus disposal program in U. So giving you a little bit of background on our speaker. So Debbie Storme is currently the Administrative Officer Senior in the Business Operations Resources section of the Purchasing Division and has been since 2013. Prior to working in the Purchasing Division, Debbie joined the county in 2005 in the Aviation section, making this her 19th year with the county. Debbie manages several programs and projects in the division, including the surplus program. And then Joe Lisa, Joe, go ahead and wave to everyone. Joe is currently an administrative coordinator with the Broward County Purchasing Division. He is a proud graduate of St. John Vianney College with a bachelor's degree in philosophy. Prior to working as an administrative coordinator with purchasing, Joe was a library specialist at Broward County Libraries, where he was responsible for running a circulation services section and managing customer accounts with a total annual average of $12 million in transactions. Joe has 2 years and about 9 months experience in public procurement. So those are our presenters here today. We want to go ahead and welcome them. And they will come up, well, we're all going to come off camera just, to preserve the bandwidth and make sure that we're able to share the information with you guys with limited interruptions. Also, please note, if you guys have any burning questions as they're going over anything, please feel free to type it in the chat. They'll address those questions towards the end. I believe before we go ahead and get started, our director, Mr. Bob Gleason, is on and may want to give you guys some kind of background information about the surplus program. So without further ado, Bob.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Always wonder if the technology is going to work. It's like throwing the dice here. So first of all, thank you, Alexa, and I want to welcome all of you to this Lunch and Learn. So surplus and the disposition of personal property is a critical element of our Chapter 21 of our county procurement code. And in terms of a business process, we have all of us here on this call and all of those of us who are county employees have what I would refer to as a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the equipment, the materials, and supplies that are part of county that the county owns is properly, appropriately disposed of. And I want to thank Joe and Debbie for helping with this process. I would ask any of you on the line to visit Chapter 21 of our procurement code. I believe it's Part 15, part of supply management. It also represents not only the disposal of our property, but it also represents a source of supply. So if any of our agencies, our staff, our managers, so forth, if they need a widget, well, maybe we have a widget somewhere else in the county universe that might be available for us to use. So again, it does represent a source of supply that we should always be mindful of. So I want to thank all of you for participating today and being part of our procurement supply chain management program. And with that, Alexa, I'll turn it back over to our presenters or to you. And thanks for the opportunity to have a minute.
Thank you so much, Bob. I believe Debbie will go ahead and begin today's presentation. So, Debbie?
Yes. Thank you, Alexa. So the, yeah, excuse us for a minute. We're setting up.
And as I mentioned to you guys before, if you guys have any burning questions about anything pertaining to what's being presented, please feel free to type it in the chat. Questions will be addressed towards the end. All right, there you go.
Okay. Thank you, Alexa. Thank you, Joe. So here we go. we go. Okay, so what is surplus? Surplus is any county property that's been used by your agency and it's come to the end of its useful life. If the item can be repaired or saved for future use, the cost of the repairs or storage might outweigh the potential benefit. And as Bob mentioned, we've got some legal responsibilities. The policies and procedures for the surplus program are in accordance with the Florida statutes, the Broward County Procurement Code, and the County Administrator Policies and Procedures, or CAP. There are 3 county agency roles in the surplus program, which you'll hear throughout the presentation. The sub-custodian role is the person at the agency that submits a surplus notification form, or an SNF, and they prepare an asset management disposal worksheet in PeopleSoft. The custodian is the agency director. This role approves the SNF and the asset management disposal worksheet in PeopleSoft. The subject matter expert, or SME, or SME, it could be an ETS staff if the items are computer related, or fleet management if the items are vehicles. And the roles and responsibilities for the purchasing division, there are 2. It starts with the purchasing division surplus coordinator, who receives the SNF from the agency. They also create the SNF number. The director of purchasing then reviews and approves the SNF and returns it to the coordinator, who then, the coordinator, facilitates the pickup and delivery of your surplus items. They also work with the vendor for auction sales or facilitate a donation. And here are our stats. So for fiscal year 2023, we had 177 SNFs processed. So far for the second quarter of fiscal year 2024, we already have 156. The county surplus revenue for 2023 was 1.1 million. And as of quarter 2 for fiscal 2024, our revenue is 358,000. The figures also include enterprise agency and fleet vehicle auctions. And these are the numbers we report to county administration on an annual basis, and accounting also receives these numbers on a monthly basis. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Joe, who's going to get into details of the program.
Thank you, Debbie. Hello and welcome, everyone. For the surplus, we have several disposal methods. You'll see 8 options listed in PeopleSoft, but the 5 most common that we use are the ones listed here, which are the sale, auction, the inter-county agency transfers, intergovernmental agency transfers, which is transfers to government entities outside of the county, our donations to 501c charities, and also the disposal of scrap materials. The types of stuff we'll be disposing, or our assets, can be broken down into 4 basic categories. We have the county, we have capital assets, closely controlled assets, non-controlled assets, and consumables. Capital and closely controlled assets will always require PeopleSoft asset management disposal worksheets along with the surplus notification form, and non-controlled assets will require only the surplus notification form. Consumables are items that are thrown away or recycled after use. Think toners, paper, oil filters. These are one and done items, and there's no paperwork required on these. Once they're used, we can just go ahead and throw them out. For our preferred method is going to be the sale or the auction. We do this because it helps mitigate the cost of the item by recovering some of the expenses. It also helps mitigate the cost of the disposal of the item because anything that our vendors can't sell, they will then recycle, and we don't have to pay for the electronic recycling fees. An SNF is always required regardless of asset type for anything that we put up for auction. And select assets will be auctioned through Gov Deals. And then vehicles are auctioned through National and are normally coordinated through Fleet. Our county agency transfers will require an SNF for all items except for the consumables. PeopleSoft Asset Management Transfer Worksheets will be required for all the controlled assets and capital assets to remove items from the owning agency's inventory and to move them to the receiving agency's inventory. Once all approvals are received, the agencies will be responsible for coordinating the transfer between them. For the disposal of through donations and intergovernmental agencies, this is a very infrequently used method because of the amount of documentation required for memos of intended use and non-sale agreements and proof of 501c charity stand-ins. Purchasing will be processing all donations, so we'll be working closely with any donations that need to be done to make sure we have the appropriate documentation and signatures. Then finally, we have the scrap. The SNF is required for all non-consumable items that are thrown out. PeopleSoft is still required for all closely controlled and capital assets, and agencies are responsible for disposing of scrap in accordance with the appropriate government regulations and are also responsible for any of the associated costs with throwing an item out. Now, how do we go about doing this? This is our surplus roadmap. This is a blueprint of the process for coordinating between surplus, the county agencies, and the vendors. You'll see that the SNF has three sub-steps, and then we have the agency disposal worksheet, the vendor, and finally the verifications. The SNF is always required for all items except for the scrap disposable of consumable items and the interagency transfer of scrap items. The SNF serves two purposes here. It's a record of purchasing's authorization per the CAP, and it also functions as a manifest for the vendor driver. He needs to know what he's picking up, and having everything consolidated in the SNF list helps expedite that. To get to the SNF, sorry, everyone, too far. To get to the SNF, we just go to your browardemployee.org or our BCNet page. If you click over on agencies and go down to the purchasing, and you'll find this right here near the top under surplus and warehouse, and the link for the form is right here. When we click that, it'll pull the form up. This is the surplus notification form in its entirety. It was recently updated. Some of the things we updated was the disposal type. We changed the language in the disposal type to match what is in the disposal worksheet in PeopleSoft. This is where the SNF is entered. I'll create this. Purchasing handles the SNF. You can enter your necessary division information here. You'll notice here in red, it says attach the purchasing division signed SNF to all PeopleSoft worksheet disposals. This is highly important because this is how we track everything, and we need this to know when we're going forward. Any disposal worksheet that does not have an SNF will be denied. Then you would put the item information here, and then we get down to the bottom. We have the disposing division signature. This will be either the division director or their appointed custodian. And then we have the purchasing approval signature, which is signed either by our division director or his designee. Both of these are digital signature boxes. So when you open this in Adobe, you'll be able to sign these and then email them to purchasing support, purchasing surplus at broward.org. And then the final signature is not a digital signature. This is the driver signature. When the driver shows up, you'll want to print the SNF out, have the driver sign it, and scan a copy and email it back to purchasingsurplus@broward.org. And going slide. And this brings us to our next step, which is the email. Once we get the SNF approved by the purchasing director, I'll go ahead and return it to you. This is an example of the email. This email gives basic instructions on the following steps that will be taking place, starting with the PeopleSoft Asset Management. PeopleSoft Asset Management is required for closely controlled and capital assets. And again, closely controlled assets are items under $5,000 that are under inventory control, and capital assets are items over $5,000 or $5,000 or more and are always under inventory control. These items always require the PeopleSoft Asset Management Disposal Worksheet, and the SNF and any other supporting documentation must be attached to the disposal worksheet. This is the workflow for the worksheet. You can see where the agency subcustodian will create the worksheet, and then the agency custodian will review and approve. Any resource managers or subject matter experts will have their approvals next. Then it will come to the purchase and surplus coordinator for review and approval, and finally the director or his designee will approve. Once we have all the approvals, we can move into the next step, which is the vendor auction coordination. Oh, we can skip right to this step for non-controlled assets, as they don't have a PeopleSoft side. Once you get the returned SNF, you'll get the email instructions. Items can be either scheduled for delivery to the warehouse or for on-site pickup by our auction vendor. On-site pickup is recommended for large deliveries. So think anything that would fill up the back of a pickup bed, you're going to want to call A1 Assets and have them come out, and those instructions will be part of the email that was previously shown. GovDeal auctions will always be an on-site pickup. Either the buyer or the buyer's agent will be coming out, and part of the GovDeal's auction completion is we get a bill of sale. And this is what the bill of sale looks like for the GovDeal auctions. You can see here where it says buyer agent signature. This is where you'll have the buyer sign when they come to pick the items up. It is important that we get this back, because I cannot close the GovDeal auctions auction out and get our money from GovDeals until I get this and I can go into GovDeals and register the auction is complete and the buy is picked up. Which brings us to the final step, which is the confirmation of the vendor pickup. Have the vendor driver sign the SNF to complete the transfer of the chain of custody. Again, for GovDeal auctions, have the buyer or their agent sign the bill of sale. Return all of these documents to purchase and surplus at broward.org to complete the surplus process. This completes the surplus roadmap, bringing everything home. I think the big takeaways here is that, with the exceptions of consumables, an SNF is always required, and the asset management disposal worksheet in PeopleSoft must always be completed for capital and closely controlled assets. And again, capital assets are any items that are $5,000 or more, and closely controlled assets are any items under $5,000 that are under inventory control. For our future plans for the surplus program, we are looking to streamline the surplus process by integrating the SNF into PeopleSoft management. We are currently working with our IT group to do this. We are in the initial development phase. The goal here is to have a document in PeopleSoft that we'll be able to print out that is going to function as our manifest for the vendors, so that way they know what they're picking up and we don't have to do this work twice, once in the SNF and once in PeopleSoft. Also, one of the things we're looking forward to is having agency site visits, so we can get a better idea of each agency's surplus needs and to help build our surplus relationships. And as part of that, you can contact us at either purchasingsurplus@broward.org. You can always give us a ring at 954-357-6066. With that, we are able to open to questions.
All right, thank you so much, Joe and Debbie. So I'm gonna go through the questions that are in the chat. For those of you guys who have questions, you know, kind of still in your brains, you haven't put them on, put them from pen to paper yet, go ahead and type those in the chat for us, please, and then we'll kind of walk through and see how many of those we can get through. So the first question is the presentation going to be available afterwards? That I can answer. Yes, after every Lunch and Learn, we do provide you with a copy of the presentation as well as a link to the video recording of today's session. The next question is, who determines the disposal method? Does the department director have authority to determine what will be sold and what will be donated? And I see that our director, Bob Gleason, has answered that question and said that the method of disposal would be determined by the director of purchasing in collaboration with the using agency. The next question is there a link for a 501c3 to see what's available to be donated?
Currently, not at this time. If there's a 501c that wants donations, they'll submit an email to Purchasing Surplus or Purchasing Information at Broward.org. And when we get the email, part of that email is supposed to be what it is they're looking for. And then the surplus coordinator will review the inventory and start gathering the necessary paperwork and working with the charity to determine if we can meet their needs.
Okay, thank you, Joe. How are the charities chosen for donations?
We don't actively seek the charities for donations. The charities will approach us, which is why we require them to provide proof of their 501c status, along with the memo for the agreements for non-resale. We're also limited by cap in how much we can donate to charities on an annual basis. You'll be able to refer to the cap to get those exact numbers. I don't have them at the top of my head.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Are county employees able to participate in surplus auctions, or is it considered a conflict of interest?
That's qualified, it depends. If they have any control over the surplus status of the item, this includes if they use it. Because if you use something, you can accidentally say, you can be accused of saying that it was broke when it wasn't, just to get it in surplus to buy it. So anyone involved in the chain of custody of an item from start to finish is not allowed to participate in the auction for the item as a potential buyer, because it would be viewed as a conflict of interest.
Okay. How do we treat controlled items that are qualified for vendor trade-in?
Controlled items for a vendor trade-in will need the surplus notification form filled out. There's the trade-in option on the SNF and also in PeopleSoft. And if Melissa wants to chime in, because I know she's in the chat, I believe accountant also needs an ICN.
Oh, yes, an ICN form would need to be completed for the trade-in. And then that would be attached to the original computer item.
Can you guys explain for the general population what does ICN mean?
I believe that means inventory control notification.
All right, thank you, Joe. So I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. Giving you guys one last opportunity. Are there any other questions that you have for surplus team while we have them here? If not, oh, one just popped in. So on old tools, how do we determine if it has been inventoried?
That's going to be based upon a number of things. The stuff that's non-control, controlled assets that are under inventory control, but under the $5,000 threshold for capital, those are normally going to be items that connect to our network, but that might not always be the case. That's going to be, if you're not sure, you can always reach out to accountant because they actually handle the inventory aspect for all of the county's items, and they'll be able to tell you if something was part of, is a controlled asset or not. But anything that's $5,000 or more at time of purchase is a capital asset and is by default inventory controlled.
Okay, where would we find the auction dates in items?
I'm not sure I follow that question.
So it sounds like they're asking if items are going for auction or sale, what are the websites that they would go to find out when those items are being sold?
A1 Assets will have a website for their auctions because they do all their auctions online. GovDeals is also an online auction site. You would go to type in GovDeals in the web search and you should be able to find it. Same thing with A1 Assets. Type in A1 Assets auctions and they should come up in the Google search. I don't have their web addresses off the top of my head because it's not, I don't go to the auction side of things frequently because I'm excluded from participating in all auctions as a potential buyer.
Okay, and I'm seeing here that Melissa put some notes in the chat about the historical threshold was 1,000, and there are items in PeopleSoft Asset Management that are capitalized that are under 1,000 and need to be disposed of via the disposal worksheet. Okay, so we're pretty much at almost at time. If you guys have any, Joe, if you can go back one slide for me, please. On your presentation. If you guys have any additional questions for the surplus team, please feel free to reach out to them. We're putting their contact information up here. You can reach out to them via email at purchasingsurplus@brown.org, or you can give them a call at our purchasing general number, which is 954-357-6066. Best bet would normally be to send the email just so that they kind of can keep track of the record of your request. And if it needs, any further, investigation or review or whatever, they would have that information there in writing. I want to go ahead and let's go ahead and give a round of applause to our surplus team here in Broward County's Purchasing Division. Thank you so much to our director, Bob Gleason, Debbie Storme, and Joe Lisa for giving such a wonderful presentation and overview at a very high level of the surplus process. As I said before, at the end of, after this presentation, we will go ahead and share a copy of the PowerPoint information for you guys so you can have that to refer to. And then this presentation was also recorded for future viewing purposes. So if you or anyone else you know of is involved with the surplus process and may not have been able to attend, feel free to share with them. Thank you guys so much for attending another great Lunch and Learn. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go through that again. See who's here. Let's go through this list again.